Hello, welcome to the Transmissions Podcast. We're here. It's a special TFcon Toronto special event, and we're here with awesome Transformers comics artist Andrew Wildman.
Hello.
Hey, thanks for joining us.
That's okay. I was here anyway.
So you were back in the beginning in the 80s, the original G1 comics, the UK comics, and
yeah. All that time ago, and we're still here. Yeah, I was. I mean, not right at the very, very beginning. There were a couple of artists kind of ahead of me on the UK comic, but it wasn't long before. I don't actually know when the UK comic started, but my first work on it, I think, was 1988, which really is a lifetime ago. Yeah, and it was my proper into being a comics illustrator. I'd done other little bits and pieces, but that was the thing that really got some traction for me. And then the best thing being that it provided the opportunity for me to start working for Marvel US. So,
right.
So it was a bit of a win-win, really.
Yeah, that's where I was introduced to you with the Marvel US, the kind of sadly the end of the Transformers comics, but I was it was very exciting towards the end because
I killed it. Yeah,
you did.
I shut the door on that whole nonsense. I don't know what happened to it. Yeah, I was only supposed to do 4 issues originally. Jeff Senior was still is a British artist who Simon Furman, the writer, had got him onto the book because they were looking for an artist. The others had moved on, Jose Delbo, all those amazing people who had worked on the book. So Simon worked well with Jeff, so he got Jeff in and he ran with it for a while. But then he wanted to take a break for 4 issues to go and work on a Death's Head graphic novel. So Simon and Jeff, between them, had created this whole Death's Head thing that they were really pushing to be, like a Marvel character. So then they needed somebody 4 issues. Simon proposed me to the editor, and the editor then said, "Okay, we'll do a couple of pages as a tryout." So they gave me, a couple of pages of script, and they said we like our robots to look like robots, because in the UK we were kind of messing around with the genre a bit, various different styles. Each artist had a distinctive style. So I did it like that. I kind of followed the brief. I did basically my version of a Jose Delbo Transformers comic spread, and they didn't like it. They thought it just lacked energy, So then they got somebody else to do 1 issue. Dwayne Turner did it, and he had a very distinctive style too, and they didn't want him to do any more. So then they just threw it back at me in a bit of a huff and said, "Oh, you can do it. And you can do whatever you like."
All right.
So go on then. So then I did my thing with it, very bit more kind of organic and expressive. Got towards the end of the 4 issues that I was doing just to fill in for Jeff, and then Jeff decided he didn't want to come back. So then I kind of held the torch until the end, other than Jeff popping back in to do the double-sized issue 75 special.
Right.
And I think Simon wanted Jeff to do it because it was a big, epic issue, and also being double-sized, I wouldn't have been able to keep up with the schedule anyway. So it allowed me a bit of breathing space, and then ran through until we got to the very unexpected end, because we didn't know it was going to end at 80.
Yeah, I mean, I was as a kid at the time reading those comics. I mean, when I read the letters page of issue 75, they said, "Yeah, we're not done, but you got to buy more issues." It was like in the letters page. I remember because I think Simon was writing the letters page at the time, and he said, "Yeah, we're not canceled yet, but we are on the bubble. So please buy as many issues as you can." So that had me a little scared, but yeah, I mean,
even when I started the book, as soon as I was assigned to the book, I kind of got on a plane and went over to. I'd never been to America before. Flew over to New York to meet Rob, the editor, who'd just taken over from Don Daly. And he was showing me around the Marvel offices, which for me, like a complete comics fanboy, was like, "Oh my God, I'm at Marvel, it's amazing. Can I stay?" and he was introducing me to various editors, and they were saying, "Oh, what are you working on?" And Rob would say, "Oh, he's working on Transformers." And other Marvel editors' response was basically, "Do we still do that book?" You know, they weren't interested in it at all. And I think Marvel were trying to cancel all the toy-based books that they were doing. They just wanted to concentrate on Marvel books. But G.I. Joe was very well established. Transformers was well established. And bizarrely now, when you look at print numbers, I think Transformers was cancelled at about 79,000 copies a month.
Yeah.
Whereas, you know, if you had that now...
you're a number one seller.
So they were very, very different times. And I first heard they were cancelling it when it was at a comics convention in London. And Tom DeFalco came over to London, and you know the convention was going on. We were all in a pub in the middle of London having a drink after day one of the convention. Tom came over to chat to me and Simon, and we were riding high with Transformers. It was all going great guns, and so we were talking to him. Oh, you know, how's everything doing? He said, well, yeah, it's all great. He said, oh, you do know we're cancelling Transformers, don't you? We're like, when? And he said, well, you've probably got a couple of issues left. Great.
Wow.
Next round's on you then. You know?
Yeah.
So that was a bit of a punch in the face, but you know, we moved on.
Yeah, but you did keep getting pulled back to Transformers a little bit. Like at least with Dreamwave and IDW, they did pull you back occasionally. What was it like when you heard they were reviving, you know, and saying, okay, we're giving you 20 more issues, let's go all the way to 100 and finish it off?
Yeah, well, I mean, it had cropped up for me over the years. I mean, obviously I'd moved on to other things, and so doing stuff for Dreamwave was great. It was good to work with Simon again, and then little bits and pieces. And I did a series of 6 covers for IDW. And basically they let me do what I want. So I said I want to do single character on each cover. They told me which characters, and they kind of left me to it, and it was great. But that was it for me. I wasn't going to do any more. And then they came back and said, what would it take to get you to do... Well, what they said was, what would it take to get you to do some interior artwork? You know, that we'd like to have you back doing some more interior artwork, and we know that there's other people out there that do. But then they paused and said, other than money. So clearly they weren't going to up the page rate or anything, you know. I said, no, I get it, that's fine. And I didn't want to do it, but they pushed a bit, and I said, well, I'll do it, but I only want to work with Simon because for me Transformers was that, you know, that thing that we'd done a number of years previously. And I want to do something that's got some kind of weight to it, it's meaningful, it's a good way to kind of wrap up the stuff that we never had the chance to finish back in the Marvel days, and they took that on. So we had some chats about what me and Simon chatted about what we wanted to do. I threw lots of fanciful artist ideas at him, and then he took some of those and did his thing. And so we pitched it to him, and they agreed. And we said we want to do it as a 4-issue series, and this is what we want to do. Fine. So they went away. We didn't hear from them. They said it's looking good. We're talking to Hasbro. You know, we'll let you know when we get a green light on it. The first that we heard about it was when they'd announced it at the San Diego Comic Convention, and so the editor got in touch and said, "Oh, by the way, it's got the green light. It's going ahead. It was announced at the San Diego Comic Convention." The only kind of caveat on it from Hasbro was that you can only take it up to issue 100. It's like, we only wanted to do 4 issues. It's like, but okay, all right then, you know. So that was great for Simon. It gave him the space to really, you know, a definitive end point. So it wasn't suddenly going to be cancelled or being well, and so he could take it through to the conclusion that he felt was appropriate for all of that. I kind of went along for the ride as far as I could, but I was getting a lot of work doing storyboard stuff for TV, and in the end I had to hand it over to Guido to kind of finish it off, although I did do a few pages in the final issue. And I did a cover for every issue. So. So yeah, it was great. It was great to dip back in, but it was a past glory in some ways, but nice to become relevant again for a little while.
Yeah, you mentioned how at least you got some pushback about drawing robots more robotically and not as expressively. But at least now, I feel like a lot of the artists have taken inspiration from your work and a lot of the artists' work from back in the '80s and made the robots more expressive, more trying to convey more emotion and more humanity in the robots.
Yeah.
And, how do you feel about I think a lot of the artists here will point to you and point to folks like Jeff Senior as inspiration for the art that they're doing now in Transformers.
Yeah, and that's kind of wonderful thing to happen, really. And I know the way that I treated Transformers because I didn't even know what they were when they first asked me to do it in the UK. I was the wrong kind of age. My kids weren't old enough, and I was too old. So, but obviously I kind of learnt pretty quickly. And two things occurred to me. One was, one of the catchphrases is this whole kind of freedom is the right of all sentient beings. It's like, well, these are sentient beings. They're not just mechanical things stomping around with no purpose. So surely then, and you could tell in the script, I mean, Simon's great at writing pathos, like he really is. So I needed to get that in. And the other thing that occurred to me that I don't think many people were doing was that, like, the cars and aeroplanes and trucks and all this kind of thing. If two cars have a fight with each other, there's going to be some serious damage, So the first thing I started to do was smashing windshields and breaking bits off and all that kind of thing. And then I would only ever and so I would have that as part of the continuity, and then only ever go back on that and clean them up a bit when they were theoretically in a position to do that. So they're like back at base or whatever, and then they could get repaired. And I think injecting that level of realism added to the art side of the realism, because the story was already very realistic. Simon was doing, it's all, fantasy sci-fi stuff, but nevertheless, he was imbuing those characters with emotions in the writing, so it had to be done in the art as well. And also, I was massively influenced by other people, so it's nice to feel like some of that has been handed on, and people are being influenced by the work that we did. The Transformers I did wouldn't look like they did do unless, if I hadn't bumped into Barry Smith's Machine Man work, where he was treating robotics in a very different way. Yeah. And there were cables and mess and stuff all over the place.
That's a gorgeous little miniseries.
Yeah, and I just poured over that, and when it came to it, I thought, I'm going to do that thing. Let's do that thing. That's going to be different. That'll get the Marvel editors who think it's been cancelled anyway, set up a notice.
I'm a huge fan of Barry Windsor-Smith.
Yeah, me too.
Genius.
Yeah. What with Transformers kind of ending, there was some discussion of taking the Neonites, the supergroup, and doing something with them. So, so what was there? What was the pathway there, or did things just didn't take off for that?
Yeah, I can't remember how that initial spark of an idea happened, but I think because both myself and Simon wanted to do essentially superhero characters. And there seemed like that ideal opportunity Circuit Breaker had always been very, very popular. Yeah. So to kind of build a team around that seemed like a good idea. So we had the Neonites. So kind of reimagining those a bit seemed like a good idea. And then we paused and thought, there are a lot of mech characters in the Marvel Universe anyway. So let's just see if we can pull those together and create some kind of mech team. And this was at a time when there was all those really cool assembling of characters around the X books and all that. A lot of people were pushing what you could do with that. So we thought, well, let's just pitch in with our version of that. I can't remember what we called it. We had a name for anyway. I did like a mock-up cover and we pitched it, but
Yeah.
Nah, they were too busy pumping as much money as they could out of the buying public on X-Men and Spider-Man, you know. So
Yeah, I guess the comic book crash was looming, looming very closely in a couple of years there.
Yeah, and it became inevitable. I don't think it was a surprise when that happened.
Yeah.
I remember talking to Joey Cavalieri, who was my editor on Spider-Man 2099, and I said to him, "What happened to this?" And he said, "Well, basically, there aren't more people buying comics. They're just buying more. The same people are buying more comics, and you can't sustain that, you know.
Right.
Especially when it's multiple copies of the same one. They're going to wise up sooner or later." And they did. So you know.
Yeah.
So the bubble burst. Yeah.
So you've moved on from comics in terms of your day-to-day job in terms of storyboarding, TV and movies and animation. So what kinds of things are you working on now?
So I storyboard for live action shows, and I also storyboard for kids animated TV shows, and they both kind of happened by accident individually in a way. The live action stuff happened because when I got out of comics, I worked in advertising for a while, but then I was asked to go and work for a video games company called Rebellion, who are like big now, to go and do some concept art work for them. And I did that as a freelancer, and then they asked me to go on staff to be like head of art and graphics. So I was handling all the design work for, environments and characters and all that kind of stuff. So I did that for quite a long time, and there was a guy that was working for Rebellion in their sort of embryonic film unit. They were looking to get into making films, and I got on really well with him. I was also doing little bits of storyboarding for cutscenes in the computer, in the games.
Yeah.
Anyway, so quite a number of years later, I just got a phone call out of the blue, and it was this guy that I used to work with at Rebellion, and he said, "You used to do storyboards when we worked, in games. Do you want to do some for a BBC show?" I was like, "Yeah, cool." So I met with the director, and it was like a sort of a horror thing, and absolutely loved it. And I got on so well with the director, a guy called Farron Blackburn, that a couple of years later he rang me up and he was like, "Hi, it's Farron. How you doing? What are you working on?" And he said, "Do you want to do some more storyboards for me?" And I was like, "Yeah, what's it for?" And he said, "Doctor Who." And I thought, this is a game changer for me, to step in to that kind of, caliber of show. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Some of you might have heard of it. Yeah. Even over here, even over this side of the pond. So that was great. And working on Doctor Who, then I got to work with various different directors on different episodes, and then they would work on another show, and they would get in touch, and just kind of went from there. So from Doctor Who, I've done all sorts of stuff for British TV. So Luther, which you probably see, and Poldark. I've even done some Poldark. Have you seen it?
No.
No. I've done some sort of like period drama stuff. Something called The White Princess, which was a big show, which I think was financed in America. Stuff for Apple, so Invasion. There's like a sci-fi show on Apple called Invasion.
Oh yeah, I watched that.
For that, yeah.
Yeah, that was good.
So all sorts of different stuff. And then on the other side of that, doing animated kids shows. So there's a company called Moonbug that do stuff that comes out on YouTube, and they get millions of views. Ridiculous.
Wow.
So there's this crazy character called Blippy, and I did some stuff on that, and that's a live action show, but they had animated elements in it. And they do a show called Arpo. I've done a load of work on that. I did the 50th anniversary episode of The Clangers, which is a classic old British TV show. So it's just all over the place. But I love it. Wow. It's great.
It's great.
Yeah.
And you are dipping your toe back into indie comics these days, right? You have a couple of comics that you're working on.
Yeah, I do. I'd always wanted to do something of my own, because it's great working on, licensed characters or for Marvel or whatever, but you have ownership in as much as you put your heart into it, but you don't actually have ownership. Mm-hmm. And I'd got ideas for stories that I wanted to tell, and round about the time of the comics crash, I was finding it really difficult to get my head around why did that happen, like I felt like I was born to draw comics and it had all been taken away from me. Oh my God, what am I going to do? So I had some coaching and, went on some personal development courses to just get my head around the change in my life at that point. And then I trained as a coach, and I loved all of that. And then I started to do lecturing in universities.
Mm-hmm.
We'll just let the crowds pass by. And so I was really into all of that sort of personal development stuff. And I thought, I wonder if I could use some of that in a comics medium to help readers, just subtly, just so that it got some inspirational content in it. So over the period of a few years, I put together a book called Horizon, which I finished and is out there. And now I'm doing another one called Oxygen, very, very different genre. The first one was kind of a bit more, I guess, European style emotional drama. But Oxygen is very definitely sci-fi, so...
Okay.
Very cool.
So yeah, working on that one. And then I've got idea for a third one after that, which will be horror. So I'm sort of playing with different,
And those are all, you can pick those all up online and...
Horizon, yes. I mean, I was just selling them at conventions or off my website. So you can buy them off the website, apwildman.com.
Okay.
And Horizon, I've just slightly repackaged and I don't know if it's up now or in the next few days. It will be up on Amazon, so you can order it from there. So
okay, cool.
I have a Transformers question. I didn't want to interrupt you. You two were having a very good conversation. But I wanted to ask you because artists that are drawing the book right now, a lot of them are sneaking little Easter eggs, into the pages that, if you're paying really close attention to the backgrounds of stuff, you're going to notice these little tiny little things that are like, oh, there it is. There's that thing. And that's very cool. Did you sneak any Easter eggs into pages?
Yeah. Nothing that was relevant to the Transformers or the story or, past issues or anything, to do with the whole universe. I can't even remember why I started doing it, but I guess after the Barry Smith influence, I was putting lots of objects, just like populating the scene with objects just to make it look lived in. And probably, I can't say it's out of boredom. I wasn't bored with it at all, but just out of a, I don't know, little sense of humour or whatever, I started to put in, I think the first thing I put in was a toaster at one point. Just anything mechanical. So then I'd have like vacuum cleaners, and then there were screwdrivers and spanners and all sorts of just different bits and pieces around. There was even there's a shot in, I think, is it the last issue where Optimus Prime comes back, and he kind of lands, and there's this big hero shot of Optimus Prime. And I thought, well, I'll just put a few bits on the floor. I used to put plugs, classic UK 3-pin plugs on the floor and things like that. But I think there's a pair of glasses on the floor as well, because I wear glasses, but I don't wear them when I'm drawing because I'm short-sighted. So they were just on the desk next to me. I thought, well, I'll just draw me glasses, just all sorts of rubbish. But there was always this sort of love it or hate it thing I did where, I would give them saliva and blood, essentially, which is just oil, really.
Sure,
but it was a bit like, whatever. It just made it more visceral. But then I gave them teeth, and people say, why are you giving Transformers teeth? It's like, I don't know, because they just look like, I don't know, teethless old men if you don't put something in there. So I gave them teeth, and because there were some people loved it, some people criticised it. So sometimes I just put pairs of false teeth on the ground, in the background as well. Just so it was more that facetious,
Yeah.
I love the idea that if you look back and if, it's probably not what you did, but if you could follow this wild storyline of this toaster, that you followed it through all these books, and you're like, oh, there's the toaster, there's the toaster, the toaster's broken, oh, the toaster's fixed. Oh, the toaster's in the base, so it's fixed now. Okay, I get it.
Yeah, there's a whole subplot going on with the
now
toaster.
There's a toaster robot. Oh my God. They all make sense now.
That Optimus Prime pose has been turned into a T-shirt. I wonder if you look on the shirt, you can find those glasses at the bottom.
T-shirt now. I just love these little Easter egg things that are just kind of, there's no rhyme or reason why they're there, or, and it just they make the scene for me sometimes. It's just like why So I think Alex Milne put Crimzeek in a scene one day. I was like, there's no reason for Crimzeek to be there, but there's Crimzeek. I mean, that's cool, right? Whatever.
Yeah.
It's fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I used to put myself in, not in Transformers, but in G.I. Joe. I'd put myself in a couple of times, yeah. And also, I was then and still am a huge fan of the music of a band called Marillion. Do you know Marillion?
No.
And so there's in the 4-issue Venom comic I did, there's a Marillion poster on the wall in the opening kind of splash page, and just things like that. Just
sure, yeah.
Play with it.
I love that stuff. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us.
No, you're welcome.
And again, the website apwildman.com. Anything else you want to plug? Anything, social media or anything like that?
Yeah, you can find me out there. I'm not hard to find. Whatever. I don't do Twitter. I've got a Twitter account, but I don't do it. But Instagram's the main one for me, and Facebook. But so it's all out there. But check out Horizon and Oxygen. Have a look. There's stuff on the website. I'm enjoying doing that, and the people that read it love it. I mean, Horizon's I got some great sort of plaudits from various people, which I've used on the back cover, obviously. I'd sent a copy to Dave Gibbons, and he gave me a wonderful little kind of, and guy called Will Gompertz, who's the arts editor for the BBC in the UK. I did a radio show with him, and I gave him a copy, and he was like, "Wow, yeah." So he wrote something, and various people. So
that's fantastic.
Those that read it like it. So those that don't read it will never know.
Well, thank you again for talking to us. For me, this is a personal treat for me. I grew up with reading your comics, and it was something that Transformers has always been an inspiration for me, and the comics in particular were things that really fueled my childhood. So thank you for all the work you've done, and definitely I'm looking forward to checking out all the work you're doing now. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you.
All right.
Thanks for coming to Canada.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Transmissions. If you'd like to join the conversation, travel to our Discord channel at transmissionspodcast.com/Discord. Want some cool transmission swag? Feast your eyes on our transmissions gear at transmissionspodcast.com/shop. If you'd like to support our podcast, go to transmissionspodcast.com/support or tell your friends about our show. We'll see you next time.